Good morning or afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Echave, and I'm an AEC Technical Specialist here at ATG USA. Today, we're going to be giving a webinar on navigating the markups list, which is going to be a comprehensive dive into the markups list for Bluebeam Revu. For those of us that have Bluebeam Revu, and maybe some of us are using an older version, I'm going to be doing my webinar today primarily from the point of view of 2018 and above. So for those of us that are new to Bluebeam Revu or have Bluebeam Revu and we're using an older version, so 2017 and lower, there is a dramatic change in the interface and how Bluebeam Revu looks. A lot of the same tools and abilities are in the older version versus the newer one from 2017 to 2018. They're just located in different areas. So if you are watching this video or you are in this webinar and you're trying to follow along, just be aware that there is an interface change from 2017 to 2018. And if you want to get that newly upgraded version of Bluebeam Revu, which I highly recommend, feel free to, one second, there's a question. Feel free to reach out to one of our sales rep or your sales rep or however you were able to find this webinar in that manner. But overall total, we're going to be going and navigating the markups list, all right? So let's go through. Description of the course that we all kind of found and what we were going to be going over with the course itself, the markups list, which automatically tracks markups placed on your PDFs. There's metadata associated to those markups as well, which we'll go over. And how does the markups list work? And did any of us even know about the markups list? So some of us may never even realize the markups list was there, kind of keeping track of the data of the markups as we're placing them on the PDFs. It also allows you to know who said what and dates and times. So as we start going through this and you start seeing some workflows you can see apply to it, or have any more questions, again, I love questions. Feel free to shoot questions in the questions and answers area or in the chat. And of course, at the end, I'll give you some time to ask additional questions, maybe not even pertaining to the markups list, just as Bluebeam as a whole. I am a Bluebeam certified instructor as well as a Bluebeam certified consultant. So hopefully we can answer some of the questions, but if you stump me, of course, I will email you later on at some point also. So what are we going to be covering? We're going to be covering the markups list. What are the objectives that we're going to be gaining from what I'm going to be covering in this webinar? We're going to be learning how to organize, sort, and filter the columns in the markups list. We're going to manage statuses and how to set statuses, maybe create custom statuses, and what do statuses mean. We're also going to create a custom column, maybe a custom workflow that we're going to go through. I'm going to do two different workflows for maybe a cost estimation for, let's say, tile. Or maybe another one would be a responsibilities column, assigning responsibilities for markups for certain participants. And the next one we're then going to be going over is learn how to import and export features, right? So we can import comments and export comments, or we can even export out all of the information from the markups list to a PDF file. So we're going to be covering all of this stuff. First, what we're going to be covering in the live demo, because I don't believe in by a PowerPoint, is we're going to be covering organizing, sorting, and filtering. And what are we going to be covering when we're doing this? We're going to explain the relationship between the active profile and columns. So as you can see here on the right, here's a little snippet of what the markups list kind of look like with some comments that have been associated to it. We're going to talk about how to turn columns on or off. We're going to change the arrangement of columns in the markups list. We're going to sort data in the markups list using any of the visible columns. We're going to differentiate between the functions of sorting, categories, and sorted column information. We're going to collapse and expand any sorting category in the markups list. We're also going to filter out some of the markups. And what does it look like when we start to filter out these markups on the PDF itself? That way, we're going to be able to distinguish and filtered and unfiltered markups through the PDF. All righty. So again, don't believe in death by PowerPoint, so I'm going to hop right into Bluebeam Revu here. So as I hop into Bluebeam Revu here, again, there's a dramatic interface change. So user interface change from 17 to 18. So if you're like, hey, Mike, my interface looks nothing like yours, that is probably because you're in a later version. So just be aware of that. Your markups list is still in the later version. Just be aware, it doesn't look like the same type of interface for this. For those of us that are users of Bluebeam Revu of 2018 and above, you will see an interface that looks exactly like this. And by default, your markups list is located in the lower left-hand corner. It has the icon of the 3 dots and the 3 lines. Once you click it, it'll open up the panel itself and you'll see the markups list. Now I'm going to drag mine up because some data already associated to this PDF. So as we kind of look at my PDF here, there's some comments, there's some measurement markups here as well. So I'm just going to drag the markups list up so I can see the list of information here. Now, as we can see here, I have some columns that associate the data to them, right? So I have the subject, the page label, comments, author, who was the one that actually made this markup, the date the markup was made, maybe some statuses that were set, and as we can see, none of them has been set, and what are the colors, layers, and space. So these are columns that are associating the data that have been made in the markups themselves. Now that this data has been marked up and these columns have been placed, what does it mean for the profile with these columns? So for those of us that have never used Bluebeam Revu before or never even heard of the term profiles, Bluebeam Revu interface our profile set. So just like our profile, if those of us remember MySpace back in the day, we can customize it, make it look the way we wanted to. You know, we had our top 10 friends, we had that one song on there. In here, we can customize our profile to look the exact way we want. So I can have my markups, my tools, everything that's convenient for me to access, my panels. Same thing down here, my profile is setting the way the columns are being arranged. So if I go up to my review up here, go to profiles, and from profiles here, I then go and change it. It's currently on review advanced. We can see that I currently have these active ones here. If I change it to maybe BCT Office here, it's going to change what's displayed in my columns. So as I can see here down in my markups list, all of these columns have been changed. Again, because the active profile is going to be setting the way your columns look. So if I go back to my profile that I was in before, which is Profiles Review Advanced, which is the standard out of the box one, you get Review, Review Advanced, Quantity Takeoff, and Filled Issues standard from out of the box of Review. I can go back and see my new orientation of what these look like. So again, the active profile is going to control the way your columns are being displayed. Now, if you want to add additional columns, you can simply go up here to the markups list, click the drop down, you'll see columns. And now from here, you can pick from what columns you want to display. Now, as you can see here, the ones that have checks next to them, that means that those are currently being displayed. And such as layer and space, which I obviously have no information as we look over here in the markups list, there's no information on them. I can simply turn these off. And we're going to keep statuses because I want to show statuses at some point. Now, maybe this isn't how I want to display my columns of information either. Maybe I want to drag these around because they need to be in a different order. Maybe I want page labels to be at the end. All you have to do is left click, drag it all the way over, and it will dock it over to the right. Or you can change how these display by going to columns again from the markups list to the manage columns here, and you can see the display order of how these would display. Then we also have the ability to sort the data, right? So we have the data that's being populated from our markups, all this metadata from our markups that we're making. And how can we sort the data? So we can simply click on the column that we want to sort by. Let's say the date. We want to sort by what date was this made at. I can left click on it and it's going to give me the option to sort by the actual date itself. So I can hit the arrow that'll then do order of them per the markups that they're being sorted for. I can also go to subject here, which is important when we're making our markups or customizing our markups. And I can sort the data by there as well. You even have the drop down ability also. So from here, I can then fan these out and collapse my columns. Maybe I only want to see comments currently displayed in my markups list from the contractor. So it allows me easier access to visually see these markups. You also have the filter button, which looks like a funnel, which allows you to filter out certain comments. So maybe I want to filter by a column some information. Generally, subject may be one of those items we want to filter by. So I'm going to select the funnel here, and I can filter. I can even do a custom one if I wanted to. We're not going to, but basically what that does gives us some values that we can say are standard Boolean values, doesn't contain, begin with, and then you can set those for those options. Or you can use the ones that are already here, such as I only want to see the contractor comments. And what does that mean? When I go from here, it also sorts the data out here in my markups list, but it also, as I go into my PDF here, grays out, sends it to the background, the other comments. So all I'm seeing in their native assigned color is the comments that I'm filtering by. Turn it back on, everything comes back to normal. You can also search for any markup or comment or data that you want to search for from the search bar here. You can also show none of the markups on your PDF. Maybe it's too busy. Maybe I want to see none of them. So I can simply click this eye feature here and see no markups on my PDF. Now it doesn't delete them, it's just hiding all of your markups. Alrighty, so we covered just the bare minimum so far of how to rearrange, sort our data, hide our comments, filter them. That is just one part of the webinar. But before we move forward, does anyone have any questions about what we just covered? Please use the questions and answers area to ask a question, or the chat feature as well, for those of us that have used Zoom before. Give it a couple seconds and then we'll move forward. That's a good question. So there was a question about the status column. I would do a different type of completion filter if you wanted to for that. I would probably do a separate column. So the question was, how do we filter out for statuses? And we're going to go over statuses in a second. And when I start adding statuses, maybe there's a different method. Instead of just using statuses, we also create a custom column that is completed or not completed, and then we could sort by that data as well. So we'll go over that in a second. Alrighty, so we'll move forward. So next, what we're going to be covering is statuses, custom columns, importing and exporting. So what are we going to learn from this? What is our objectives? We're going to set the statuses of markups. We're going to describe the stacking behavior of statuses. We're going to give an example of a workflow in which custom columns can be applied. And I'm actually going to give 2 examples. We're going to create a custom column. We're going to import comments from another PDF using the import button. We're also going to export markup data to a PDF summary using a variety of settings, and export for a CSV summary report for Excel maybe. So again, don't believe in death by PowerPoint. I'm not going to show you images. Let's go right into review here. So first, we're going to talk about statuses of markup. So there's a status column that is natively built in with Bluebeam Revu here. And as we can see it here, it's right here. And for those of us that can't find it, again, your drop down columns and do statuses here. And then from here, we can start setting statuses particular to a comment. Maybe there was supposed to be an added door here and someone clicked on it and there was already set statuses predetermined by whoever created this PDF or particular to the profile. And I can say, maybe this was accepted and then maybe it was completed. So as we can see here, we can start seeing this data being allotted for the statuses. The stacking behavior, it appends it to it. So it's saying it was accepted by me, the user. Michael Echave on a set date and time, and then it was completed by a set date and time. Now there was a question about filtering these, in particular to a certain type of one, which doesn't give us the option for them, right? So let me do all of these, filter here, and we can filter by completed, it looks like, but it's still showing the accepted. Let me see, someone asked the same question. I said status, there's some markup sheet. Yes, filters only by latest, by the way. Yes, correct. 1 second. So I'll have to come back to that. It seems like a pretty custom workflow that you're looking for filtering options. The question was, I want to select some of the other markups on the sheet and set a different status right now. Everything is selected, including previously selected sets, but I do not want to change previously set, and manually clicking is tedious. So I'll go through and we'll talk about that, maybe possibilities in an email to see how we can kind of work through that. So statuses, we're setting statuses dependent again on what's been created. And maybe we wanted to create custom statuses, right? So these statuses have been set already predetermined. We can simply go over here and select this button, which allows us to manage our statuses. And now what do status management mean? I can go over here and start adding some custom statuses, such as maybe I want the color to change when an item has been completed to green, or maybe red when it hasn't been completed. So I can simply go over here and just say add. Now I can start creating my custom status bar here and maybe say completed, or status of it, I guess. So you can just hit status is what I would probably do. Whatever you want to do to make this your custom item for it. And then I'm going to add, okay, what is it? Is it going to be completed? The text means the text for the comment will change if you put text here. This isn't a text that you're just putting in items. The name of the status that's going to be placed here is going to be completed. Text meaning the comment for this, whatever the comment is, will change as well. So that's up to you if you want to do that or not. I do want it to change a color though. Completed probably is going to be green for those of us. There we go. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to add another one and say maybe it wasn't completed because someone needs to know when they didn't complete a markup because they missed it. So I'm going to change it to red. I'm going to hit OK. So now I have two different statuses for our new status column that we're going to be adding. Now when I go back over to here and I see that maybe this electrical room layout CE1, nope, let's find something different. Maybe where's this room labels here? Did somebody complete this? I'll see my new status bar here. It was not completed. So now it turned red up here. I could then say, okay, maybe now it was completed. And now it's turned to green. Next one is, let's talk about creating a custom column, right? So we went through for statuses, talked about how statuses could work. I know there still is that question about filtering statuses as we're going through here. Since by default it is filtered by the latest one, well, how could we do it a different way? And we don't want it to do it a manual way. Probably going to have to do some searching, and maybe the only option right now is to do it the manual way where you're assigning a custom column for it to be completed. And maybe you do it on a formula base where it says this one's completed and that one automatically filters out as completed for that one. And we'll talk about creating custom columns. Who knows? There's another tip. Somebody asked, put in a tip. It's good to uncheck other statuses groups so you don't have to deal with the submenu if you only need one status set. So he's saying if you don't want to have a certain set being shown here, you can of course uncheck these so you're not going to be seeing them when you're actually placing them into the area. So again, it's up to you on what you want to have. It's simple, easier, that method. So next, creating a custom column. So maybe some of us are using the data or have some area measurements. I already calibrated this document here simply by going through and saying the measurement for that I wanted to do. And then I did an area measurement of this area over here. And I want to maybe get a cost estimate of this tile at some point for this area here that's going to be placed, right? So as we can see here, I'm going to go through and maybe undock those ones and just have flooring. No, let's go through. I want to have flooring here. And maybe we want to assign a cost estimate to the square footage here of tile. What is the cost of tile? And we also want Bluebeam Revu to do the math for us so we don't have to export this out to Excel. But of course, we can always export this out to Excel if we wanted to. So what I can do is go through here and go to columns here, go to my manage columns, and I can create a custom column. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this flooring. The comment is already for the label for this one is tile. So I'm going to add a actual tile cost to it. So I'm simply going to go to my custom columns here and I'm going to add one. I'm going to name it tile and I'm going to name it a number. What type of number? It's going to be currency because I'm going to put a dollar amount to it. I'm going to hit OK. And of course, we could have made it a choice with a value already associated to it. I prefer this method because maybe the tile cost changed. It's totally up to you. And what I can simply do is I can go to the markup here. And when a custom column has been created, I can go to my settings here. I can also assign it down here if I wanted to, but I'm showing you two different ways. And I can go from here, I can go to my custom column and I can see that there's a custom column created for this particular one that's tile. And I'm going to assign a dollar amount to it of $2. So now when I go back over to here, I can see my dollar amount added for it is $2. Okay, so now I need this tile column. I could say the area instead of having this comment. So let me just put that here, area. Put the area right here. So I want to have the area times this tile value so I can get an actual cost estimate of what this is going to cost. So I can simply go down from here, the drop down, go to columns, manage columns again, and now I can do another custom column of maybe total. I can then go to formula-based item, and I can say I want the area, just typing in A, times the tile cost. What is it going to be? It's probably going to be a number value, right? So currency, because that's what I want to know. What's it going to cost me to put tile in this? Dollar amount, and I'm going to include totals. I'm going to hit OK. And again, if we're creating any of these custom ones, is it going to just be assigned to the particular PDF, which it automatically does, or am I going to save it to my profile? Completely up to you on how you want to do this. And I'm going to hit OK. Go back down to this item here. I should have my custom over here. I'm going to drag it right over here. And there's my cost for it. So now I have my area, the tile cost itself, and the total for it. Now I can also maybe set a responsibility column. So maybe some of these comments that were made earlier need to be per individual. Maybe it's the designer end. Hey, you need to go and check and make sure that these room labels were added. So maybe I need to create a custom column that's meant for responsibility. So then I can go to manage columns here and add one for responsibility. I'm going to name it responsibility here. And I'm also going to make it a choice because it needs to be particular to who is the responsible party for. I need to add a choice. Who can they select it from? I'm going to add myself, Michael. And the subject's important here when we're doing choice-based custom columns. The choice has to match, the subject item here has to match the subject particular to it. Reason being is if I put contractor here and I try to go to the engineer item for it and I try to go to the engineer responsibility, I'm not going to populate any choices. It's particular to the subject. So now if I go over here and I say this is going to be the contractor choice here, it needs to be spelled the exact same way over here. And I'm going to hit OK. Again, I could have assigned a value here. This could be the same way we use our tile feature, where you select the item of what it is, and the tile has a numerical value for it. Could have done it that way. Now I'm going to add a secondary choice, maybe Joe for Joe Demo here. Demo, I'm at Demo. Same exact person I want, contractor, hit OK. Now I have the two choices. I'm gonna hit OK again. So now I've added a secondary column. So again, I'm going to go over here to the contractor, give me some more real estate here. I should have a responsibilities column now. I can double click on the area here and assign who it's responsible for. Now this could be another way of how you are able to filter out. You give it a choice, completed or not completed. And this would be a good way to help you filter out items, right? So we can then go to filter, go by responsibility depending on who it is. We can do a custom one, and we can give it to who it's responsible for. Or we can just simply go to here and assign who that it is for and see that these are now filtered out by the particular person, right? So again, responsibility. The other one would be statuses we can do. And I can see my completed one, but again, like we were saying before, it's the most recent one that was being set by the status itself. And again, so we assigned this one for contractor before. Now, if I try to go and see my subjects here that I have multiple ones and I go to engineer, and I try to add another one here, responsibility, I don't see any options, right? If we remember before, I didn't assign it specifically to the contractor area. I assigned it specifically, sorry, I didn't assign it to the engineer. I assigned it specifically to the contractor. So the contractor is the only one that has choice. Next, how do we import or export comments? So maybe we have a revision set, a new PDF set came to us, and instead of using our overlay feature or our compare documents, we want to just import our old comments and we can see where those changes were made. We can do that simply by importing comments. So I currently only have the contractor comments and engineer comments. What about architectural comments, right? I can simply go to where my export was. So just by going here to the markups list, to markups, I can see I have export. So I can export these current markups that I have, or I can import comments that were made from somebody else. So I'm actually going to import some of the architectural comments. So I have architectural comments here that I want to import. And it's going to import all of those architectural comments. So you have the ability to import and export comments that were made. We also have the ability to do a summary report. So for those of us that want to get a report at the end of all of these markups, you have that ability. You can simply go over here to this little paperclip looking item that looks like summary. You hit the drop down, you have some summary options. Now from here again, you can always, once we bring up the dialog, change it to CSV, XML, or PDF, depending on what type of export you want to have out. I prefer the PDF method here. And from the PDF method here itself, again, you select what files you want to have export out. Currently, I'm using the only added ones from the opened items. And then from here, you can always, under output, select what type. So again, I selected PDF. You can always change it at this point to what you want it to be. And then you can go over to the columns area and select what columns you want to print out from the summary report. Maybe I don't want to have some of these other ones here, such as page label. I can deselect it and it won't show this actual column. I could say maybe show empty columns if I wanted to. I can also add a filter and sort what I want to export out. Maybe I want to sort by certain subjects, or no, I don't want to see just the architectural comments. I want to see all of my comments. Or maybe comments particular. Or maybe statuses particular. Or maybe responsibilities particular to a certain responsibility that has been assigned. I'm just going to do all of these. And my output for PDF, you do have a different option for CSV, not many. But for PDF, you get a little bit more. I always like to put the append and hyperlink to current PDF. It's going to staple these on the back end. That's what append is. It's putting it on the back part of the PDF file that you have open, that you're running this summary report on. And then it's going to add a clickable hyperlink from the PDF markup to where the PDF was made on your document. You can add a title if you wanted to, maybe append a date and title. Maybe you created a template that you had already. And this padding feature is when you see the actual markup of what the image looks like, how large of the area around it are you going to see of the PDF? So the greater you get, the more area of the PDF around it you'll see. That's your padding, percentage, and options as well. Now you can save this configuration because maybe you want to create a standard throughout your company wide, right? So you can save this config and then load it in later, right? So you can say, hey, everyone here at my company, locate the saved configuration of how I want you to print out your PDFs. It's right here on the network. Every time you're getting ready to create a new one, load that config, and you're good to go. I'm going to hit OK. So again, this appended it to the back, so I can go to the next page. I can see my PDF here. Following page gives me the options for it. As I'm going through here, all of my architectural comments here specific to the subject of architect, because that's how these markups were made in particular. I can see what the comments were, the date and time. Go to the next page, We can see I have some contractor responsibility sets again. You see your statuses, engineer, and then we have our cost total for our flooring that remember we made before. So maybe we want to get a total cost estimate of what the total cost of items are for it. And again, we have our total, our area, our tile, and our total. And hey, let's see where this tile floor is. Maybe it's a little bit too large and we need to make some changes to it. All I have to simply do is click this particular markup. As you can see here, the arrow or the thumb is pointing to it. I select it. It brings me directly to where that markup was made on that PDF. We also have the ability to print out an Excel document for it as well. So again, I did PDF before. We can do CSV here. I can say what type of items I want to include, such as markups and markup total, include column headers, include measurement units. Yes, all of the 9 and above, boom. And it's going to bring it into an Excel format. And I can start having this data in Excel. You can also take this a step further. For those of us that have Bluebeam Revu Extreme version, you can create a quantity link from some of your data in your markups lists. Any data you have in your markups list, you can create a quantity link to an Excel document as well. Again, that is a Bluebeam Revu Extreme version. Now I'm going to go back to my questions over here. Imported comments should be from Bluebeam as well. I have not tested it from any other software. For those of us that didn't know, Bluebeam Revu follows the ISO standard for writing PDFs. So any comments or markups or hyperlinks that are made in Bluebeam Revu will work in any other software that runs the ISO standard. Now the question being about import comments from a different software, I do not have the answer to that, but from my thought process of what we're kind of talking about, as long as it follows the ISO standard, I do not know. I have to give it a whirl. When comparing markups from different PDFs, do the PDFs have the same number of pages? So if you're importing or exporting comments, we're talking about comparing markups. Bruce, are you maybe wondering about how we could use the overlay feature to compare differences, or are we talking about markups? We just want to import markups from one PDF to the other and compare them, and hopefully they align. Import, okay. So Bruce talking about maybe importing. So can we import comments? Yes, you can. They're gonna go to the exact same place they were from the original document. So exact same import and location is where they're going to be pasted. I wouldn't use the import comment feature to hopefully see if they're aligning onto the other ones in terms of those options. I would use the overlay feature or the compared document feature in Bluebeam Revu. And there are YouTube videos on how to use those two ones to check and make sure the differences from two different documents have been made correctly. That is what I would use that for, Bruce. I wouldn't use the import comments for that feature of trying to see the differences. Importing comments is more of just like, hey, I want to bring this data over to here because this still had some of the information that we wanted from here to here. But again, you can, it's totally up to you. So that goes over the summary report items. Let's hop back into our PowerPoint here. Thanks for everyone for taking the time to come today and listen to my webinar on the markups lists. So Michael, that is a one-way link. So you could do a separate hyperlink. Oops, let me go into review. So the question was, hey, can I go back, right? So depending on where I was, or was it? There is a feature that you can use if you were to go there, but one second. So from here, right, we could go back using this. So previous view, Alt plus left is what you could use. So if I select it, right, so if I'm saying, okay, here was where I was, but where was I from previous view, you can use the hotkey, which is Alt plus left, or this little feature right here, which is the previous view button. Boom, just like that, brings it back. If you want it to be a clickable link though, hey, if I clicked here, I wanted to click here and it to bring me there, you could create a hyperlink for it if you wanted to. That would bring you to that spot on that page. But again, that's up to you. Alrighty. Since there are no other questions, thank you all for taking your time to come out and listen to my webinar. And I hope you all have a good rest of your evening.